The dispatch order came in at Atata 341 station time, routed through Earth's automated monitoring grid, and it did not ask for my opinion. I was 3 hours out from the Varath corridor relay when the order landed in my queue. Shoal dispatch, Sector Outpost Varath-Olen. Distress Tier 2, errant clause nearest monitored asset. Proceed immediately. No flag officer's signature, no explanatory note. Just the grid, doing what the grid does when something somewhere crosses a number it has been, watching without anyone's knowledge. I was carrying 4 diplomatic pouches, a crate of surveying instruments, and, in the cargo hold that my manifest listed as environmental support hardware, a 12-person repair crew with a full structural seal kit and portable atmosphere processing rig. I had not been told why the crew was there. I had been told not to ask. That is a particular kind of answer, and I had been flying long enough to recognize it. I laid in the course for Varath-Olen and woke the repair lead, a compact woman named Orvith, who had the habit of checking her seals before she checked anything else. She looked at my course correction, at me, and said nothing. She went back to the hold. I could hear her waking her team. 11 came up on the long range 40 minutes later. It was a sector watchtower station, the kind the Vithrani compact ran on the edges of their surveyed space. A slab of functional architecture under an observation dome, parked above a pale atmosphere planet, with a name I couldn't pronounce. It was not transmitting a distress signal. It was not transmitting anything. That is not the same as being fine. I hailed them on the standard monitoring frequency, the one my grid order specified. There was a long pause. Long enough that I had time to note it. And then the channel opened. B. The voice that came through was controlled in the particular way that people are controlled, when control is all they have left. Identified human vessel. You are not expected. Please identify your authorization. Curry's vessel errant clause, Earth Monitoring Service, I said. Comms Officer Sarah Devon. We received a threshold dispatch from the automated monitoring grid at 0341. We're here on that. Another pause. We have not transmitted a distress signal. No, I said. You haven't. I pulled up the channel log while he processed that. 307 years of it, which is a long time to scroll through on a small screen. The entries were identical, each one a single line. Information ping received. Channel Varath-Olen monitor. Status acknowledged. Automated response issued. Every 48 hours without fail, 3 centuries. Whoever had set up Varath-Olen's distress protocol had built in a confirmation ping, a pre-transmission handshake that had complete before the outgoing SOS could actually fire. The idea presumably was to verify the channel was live before broadcasting into a void. 307 years ago, Earth's outer reach, listening post 7 had picked up that ping, recognized the handshake format from a monitoring treaty that no one had thought about in 2 centuries, and answered it automatically, logged the channel as an active mutual monitoring partner, and then, with the patient indifference of automated systems, had kept answering it every 48 hours. For 307 years, neither side had noticed, or rather, our side hadn't noticed, because no one was checking the automated logs for a treaty channel that predated the current administration by a considerable margin, and their side hadn't noticed because the system was working exactly as designed. The ping went out. The ping came back confirmed. The distress buffer sat ready, waiting for someone to push it. This time, the distress tier had crossed a threshold. Something on Varath-Olen had gone wrong enough that the buffer status upgraded from standby to Tier 2. The automated grid had seen a Tier 2 on a monitored channel and dispatched the nearest asset, which was me and Orvith, and 12 people in a cargo hold pretending to be environmental support hardware. I'm sending you the channel log now, I told the watchtower commander, whose name I had pulled from the compact registry as Varath-Olen Sector Administrator, 11 years in post. This short version is that Earth's monitoring system has been confirming your pre-transmission handshake since before your current administrative district existed. When your distress tier crossed the threshold, the grid dispatched us. Your actual SOS is still queued. It hasn't transmitted. The silence on the other end had a different quality this time. We have a pressure seal failure on the secondary atmosphere processing ring, Varath-Olen said, after a moment. I was in the process of initiating the formal distress sequence. What's your current internal atmosphere reading? He gave me the numbers. I relayed them to Orvath, who was already at the hold door. She looked at the figures, did something rapid on her handheld, and held up 4 fingers. 4 hours. Team. Can have the seal addressed in approximately 4 hours, I told Varath-Olen. Request permission to dock. Another pause. I could hear him breathing, or whatever the Vethrani equivalent was. You are already inbound, he said. It was not quite a question. We are, I said. He gave us docking authorization, and I could hear in his voice the thing I had heard before, in other commanders, on other stations, when the help that arrived was not the help they had called for, and had not come from anywhere they had thought to look. It was not gratitude, exactly. It was not alarm, it was the sound of a mind revising its understanding of the situation, carefully, one assumption at a time. This team was good. They were the kind of good that comes from having done a thing many times in conditions that did not allow for mistakes, and they worked with the quiet efficiency of people who had packed their suits before they knew where they were going. Pressure seal failure was a fractured coupling on the secondary ring's eastern junction. A clean break, probably stress fatigue, kind of thing that announced itself slowly, and then all at once. The team had the coupling isolated, patched, pressure tested inside 3 hours and 40 minutes. I spent those hours in the docking bay anteroom with a cup of something warm that Varath-Olen's junior administrator had brought me, and Varath-Olen himself, who sat across a narrow table and studied the channel log I had sent him. He read it the way a careful person reads something that requires rethinking several things simultaneously. 307 years, he said. 1 point. Give or take, I said. The monitoring treaty this references, I am not familiar with it, but neither was I said, until this morning. He turned the log over again. You were in the Varath corridor. You were already close. Grid dispatched the nearest monitored asset, I said. That was us. And if you had not been nearby, I thought about that. The grid would have dispatched whoever was, I said. It's automated. It doesn't make exceptions. He looked at the log again. 307 years, he said. Your system has been confirming that it is watching this channel. Yes, and you were not aware of it. Not personally, the system was. He set the log down. He had the expression I had seen forming since the first moment I told him his SOS hadn't sent. That particular stillness of a person who has been about to do something and discovered it was already done. His distress sequence was still sitting in the outgoing buffer. Complete. Formatted. Addressed to the Compact's Sector Emergency Authority, 31 light minutes away. He had been 6 keystrokes from transmitting it when my hail came in. Orvath knocked on the anteroom door at the 3-hour 40 mark and gave me a thumbs up through the glass. I relayed it to Varath-Olen, who closed his eyes briefly and opened them again. I filed the repair record, signed the channel log with a notation. Active and monitored. Threshold dispatch completed. Channel status confirmed, and walked back to the dock. Orvath's team was already stowing their kit. The manifests would show environmental support hardware, delivered as required. At the lock, Varath-Olen was waiting. He stood with his hands at his sides and said with precision, "We did not contact you." "No," I said. "Your system answered our handshake." "Yes." He looked at me for a moment. 307 years ago, yes. He didn't say anything else. I didn't expect him to. I stepped through the lock. Orvath followed, and I heard the seal close behind us with a sound like a proper pressure fitting, which it now was. Errant claws pulled away from Varath-Olen at the 7-hour mark. I filed the automated confirmation with the monitoring grid. Dispatch complete. Channel active. Next automated confirmation pending in 48 hours, and laid in the course back to the Varath corridor. In the cargo hold, Orvath was already running her seal check. In the buffer of Varath-Olen's outgoing comms queue, Varath-Olen's distress signal was still sitting, unsent, waiting on a confirmation ping that Earth had already answered. The grid marked the channel active. It would answer the next ping in 48 hours. It had been doing it for 3 centuries, and no one had told it to stop.